talk about getting more distance. First thing you can do is join Travis Johnson's Instagram channel. Small fee, great tips. You're gonna hear stuff you haven't heard before. He just gave me a really good tip. He gave a video on it. It's different than anything you've ever heard, I guarantee that part. When you want more distance, we're gonna focus on making a tight loop, okay? Because I want a tight, narrow loop for piercing the wind and just for line speed, all that stuff. I want a tight loop. And the way I'm gonna get it is by bending the rod. We wanna focus on bending a rod. And really what reminded me of that, so I watched a video by the great Scott McKenzie. Super video. He talked about bending the rod, and that's how you get your power. You know, the temptation is to really give her the onion and, you know, maybe like put a lot of body English in it and spread your legs out and lift and sweep back fast and then slam it. I don't know about you, but it's easy for me to get in that mode. When really, what we need to do is go back to basic fundamentals, which of course are anchor placement, getting the perfect anchor, getting a clean lift. It's got to start smooth and clean. You want to cast smoother, not harder. You don't want to be jerky. I don't want to make a big deal about the lift, but you can't have a jerky, crappy, fast lift. Everything's got to be smooth. Okay, so lift, sweep, smooth, and then make that perfect anchor. And here's what we're going to try to do. Instead of casting further, we're going to cast smoother. So instead of going for power, we're going to go for smoothness. We want to feel heaviness and weight throughout the entire cast. We want to feel like we're pushing with that bottom hand, feeling the weight as the rod bends in our hands. Want to sweep up and land that anchor really nice and soft. In this situation, with this rod and line, it all changes with the different rods and stuff you use. This is my comp rod with a 67-foot head on it. And instead of slamming it, I'm going to go smooth, and I'm not going to over-exaggerate. I'm going to try to really bend that rod. That is where we get our power, not in hammering with our hand. So I'm going to get my rod this rod has a great big long grip, and I want to grip it down a little lower just for comfort. So I'm going to get all the slack out, and I'm going to left, not a lot of power, just bending the rod. That time I had a crappy anchor. I'll do a good anchor. Want it to land right in front of me. And I'm gonna, to bend this rod, I'm gonna be in the firing position, however you want to do that. For a longer line, I'm gonna be like this, hopefully. I'm gonna pull down with both hands, okay? And try to really bend that rod. Smooth acceleration. It's got to be smooth. Everything's got to be smooth. Lift, sweep, circle up, and then a smooth forward cast. And sometimes, if I have a rod that's really hard to bend, like this Karen, made by James Chalmers, the Gale Force genius, this thing bends really easy. If I have a rod that's really hard to bend, I'm going to think more about casting off the tip, but bending it in my hands. So just for whatever that's worth. A lot of times if you get it into your head, okay, I'm going to cast with the butt section of this rod. I'm going to use the whole rod and get all the power from the butt. And you try to do that in your brain, and you don't imagine casting off the tip unless you have a distinct formula for that. Then you're going to end up using too much body, too much arm. You still want to keep everything tight and bend the rod in your hands downward. Okay, downward with the top, pulling in with the bottom, squeezing with the bottom hand. Okay, get that anchor perfect. And then when you do go to shoot some line, try to keep the same stroke and everything. Try to keep the same stroke. Don't get crazy. Shoot a little line, but don't let it psych you out. See, I slowed myself down and tried to feel that rod bend. And it wasn't a perfect loop in full disclosure, but the idea is get some more line out. And I'm really not going to try to hurry any part of the cast. I'm going to concentrate on making it super smooth. I want everything to feel super heavy in my hands. It's like closing a door, a heavy door. When you do that forward stroke, you know, of course we're not pushing, we're kind of coming down with the top hand. I'm trying to do that more now. And if you push against the door, a heavy door, it's like, you accelerate through the push because it gets lighter as you go. So I am going to try to do that with concentrating on bending the rod. Okay, so you don't want to hammer it. You want to be super smooth and bend the rod. So, if you want to get really good at casting and casting for distance, it will really help to video yourself, video your D-loop, or have somebody watch you. That's the beauty of having a casting partner, is they can see what's going on back there. You know, you can sweep back a little faster if you want to. You can do anything that works for you. Just make it easy on yourself. Some people might like a quicker tempo. So you can, if that works for you. And if you have like a really stiff rod and a line with a really long back taper, you might have to give her a little more onion in your sweep. You're gonna learn different stuff. I'm not gonna give it away here. And here's what happens. We're gonna try for more distance, so we automatically start doing stupid stuff. So, number one tip is don't try too hard. If you're gonna go for distance, you gotta be smooth, okay? Don't hit it harder, hit it smoother. You really gotta concentrate on smooth acceleration throughout the forward cast, smoothness through the sweep and circle up part. It's all got to be smooth. You want to feel as much weight and tension as you possibly can. The other thing is you want a perfect anchor, of course. That is really important. It does not help you to put more energy into the cast and then and hurry through the sweep and get a funky anchor. It has to lay out flat and straight. But the other thing is, what do we do when we're gonna cast further? We spread our feet apart, we get in that stance, and we give just a little more of everything to that cast. You know, we put all this body, you know, And up to a point, you might need to do just a little bit of that. But I've been sitting here working on my forward stroke and bombing a few out. And I find myself, you know, my feet get spread further apart. My motions get more exaggerated. Pretty soon I'm dipping down, lifting up, dipping, you know. Pretty soon you're going through this whole bunch of hoops. And you've made up your mind to cast it far. And then right before you cast it, it's like, well, crap, that anchor isn't perfect. It's really not even worth casting. So, really, one of the best things you can do is just not try to cast far, but cast a tight loop. Try to get a cast with a perfect loop and all that heaviness, and don't spread your legs apart. Keep everything just right in here. You know, so if I want to go for a nice long cast, I might just point my toes towards the target, lift, and that wasn't that great, but what I was looking for in the cast was getting that anchor right. You don't need just a huge bunch of speed in your sweep. You just don't. You can, in certain situations, might call for it. But if you get a nice light anchor and a D-loop without a lot of tension, okay, that baby flew. And why did it fly? Because the wind was going in the same direction as the cast. But instead of getting all spread out and giving all this funky body English and sweeping low and, you know, I just kind of chilled out, made sure my body was rotating, my hands were pushing, everything was just like normal, and then getting that anchor to lay flat, getting the D-loop off the water, and then aiming a little bit higher and smoother. And instead of crushing it for distance, I kind of smashed it like you're closing a heavy door, you know. It's got to be heavy. The line's got to feel heavy like a heavy door. And the further your arm gets away from you, the faster it goes. Oh my goodness. So, you don't want to pound it. I don't want to just have all bottom hand or all top hand. I want to feel that rod. I want to go slow enough that I feel the whole rod gets a hold of the whole line and shoots it out there. So I'm not trying to go for a really hard cast. I'm trying to go for a really smooth cast. I'll do a really smooth one and try to just think about getting a tight loop, okay? That was a little funky, but the idea is, instead of, you know, now I'll do an over-exaggerated one. Then I got a 67-foot head, gale force altitude, gale force equalizer altitude. So instead of doing this, like that, see, I got all psyched out. I'm going to put the least amount possible. Just going to try to get a light anchor. See, that hurt my back. I have better luck backing off a little bit. And just hitting it medium, being smooth, aiming for a narrow loop. I like to aim a little higher, try to concentrate on that smoothness throughout the loop. And I like to underhand cast, And a lot of underhand casting techniques can be implemented in long line casting. It does help, obviously, to lengthen the cast. For a snake roll, it's tempting to get all spread out. Actually, that one flew pretty good, but it was an accident. That time I hammered on the forward cast. I won't do that this time. I'll just be smooth. I'm going to be smooth and try to do a tight loop. Hey, that was better. That was into the wind. But the idea is to back off. Don't get all straddled out. So, some other things I've been thinking about. I listened to the Al Burr podcast about 37 times. He does one on wet fly swing, and he does one on Jeff Mishler's Fin and Fire Fly Shop. Same one I got to be. I've been on both of them, and literally broke the internet. Al Burr and Travis Johnson have both said a couple different things. Travis said this on the Swing the Fly No Fish Harmed video on YouTube. It's a public video, so I'm not going to be giving away any trade secrets. But he basically said, forget about all the rules. Forget the rules. So forget the rules. Al Burr said, take everything you know, throw it out, examine it, each one, and basically it's like critical thinking. Use critical thinking to examine everything we believe, and do what works best for you. I would say to do what works best for you, as long as it doesn't hurt your body. If you're getting the desired effect, as long as you're not hurting your body, that's pretty much what I think is important. So, critically examine everything, and here's an example I'll give. We've always, one of the age-old sayings in fly fishing is, line follows rod tip path, or that. Al Burr said that is kind of true, but not really, because not only does the fly line follow the rod tip path, it also follows momentum. Fly line follows rod tip path and follows the momentum. If you did listen to Al Burr, and now you've decided you're gonna remake your whole cast into a continuous motion thing. So instead of just trying to totally obliterate your cast and remake it with Al Burr's modified D-loop and all that, what I've been doing, armed with that knowledge, is just taking a little at a time, gleaning what I can, and discovering the casts that I already use that on. And one of the casts that I've kind of did without knowing was my snake roll cast at one time, watching Al Burr on his Clearwater Spey Clave video. His snake roll had, in single spay, his forward cast had some similarities to how mine used to look. Instead of just deciding you're gonna, lift and do it really crazily, I would stick with the snake roll and, the kind of stuff you've already been doing, that you've been using a little continuous motion or continuous tension or continuous load, some of your waterborne cast and stuff. Anyway, just don't destroy what you already got. Try just massaging it in. And I know that my friend Brian, who I cast with a lot, it really helped his single spade to try to keep it, do the continuous load. He likes to try to keep tension in that whole thing. Sometimes that pause can get you in trouble just because you get too much stick during your sweep. Anyway, don't go crazy. The other thing Albert said that was really good was get a double taper line. We have one, and when I say we, I mean Brian. And we get that thing out every once in a while and cast it, and it makes your technique be perfect. You can't take anything for granted. These modern lines are so fabulous these days that you don't really need perfect technique to cast them, which is great. I wouldn't want to spend all day fishing with the double taper line necessarily. Here's another thing. Where we can get really confused about, well, do I want to use continuous tension, or do I want to use what Albert says, forced turnover, which I don't think that's what you're really doing when you're making a beautiful, perfect anchored spey cast, just because you don't use his method. But should I use continuous motion? Should I use, cack-handed or left hand up? Should I use continuous motion? Should I try to keep the rod loaded? What should I do? Should I have an open stance or a closed stance? And really the answer is all of the above, because you want to have every tool you can in your arsenal. You should be able to do a wombat cast or Trevor's rewind cast. All those casts are good in the wind. I think you need every single technique there is out there to have a really good game. You should have all the tools in the toolbox you possibly can. Left-handed, cack-handed, right-handed, cack-handed, touch and go, sustained anchor, all of it. We should be able to implement all of it. Be like a basketball player who only shot a set shot. The feet are going to be a certain way, this is going to be like this, and you're going to shoot. Well, every shot in basketball isn't a free throw. So you need touch and feel, and you need to be handy. And so all the casts, to be a good basketball player, you have to have a touch that when you're out of position and have a hand in your face, that you can still put the ball in the hole. And it's the same with spey casting. There's sometimes you're on a rock, sometimes you're up against the brush. All these different techniques, the continuous motion, the Albert's special D-loop thing that he does, all that kind of stuff we should be handy enough with our outfits to make some of that stuff happen. So if you have free time, I think you should just spend as much time casting and fishing and keeping busy and doing all that stuff as much as possible, spending as much time on the water. There is nothing wrong with learning to do the helicopter cast. I wonder if I can even do probably destroy my camera, but maybe I can do a jelly roll. If I can remember how it goes. I'll try one. I got a wind, so it's probably going to crash. If it doesn't work, I'll edit it out. No, overhang. Get my line out. Ate that one. I'll try it again. Jelly roll, take 3. Far enough apart so I don't fall down. I always thought it was cool that Simon Gosworth did that on his Rio's Masterclass or Rio's Modern Spey Casting. And I tried and tried and tried. It wasn't until practicing a few years and, you know, getting handy with the tools that now I can do one with that. I haven't tried one in forever. So it just goes to show you that if I wanted to be a comp caster, I would only cast long lines. But since that's not my ultimate goal, I just like learning all the styles and learning continuous motion Skagit casting, Goran Anderson underhand casting, and long line casting from Bruce and Travis and all these guys, Zach Williams, everybody, Tim, Arsenal, all these guys whose videos I've watched, George Cook. So I'm not dropping names, I'm just trying to give credit. Watching all those guys and then trying to learn to cast, do all these casts, and then learning all the different styles. And there are gems in each of the styles if you have an open mind and you come at it from a humble attitude. You can learn stuff that you didn't realize was possible.